if I'll go ahead and I'll present what I've been working on for the last 2 years. I'm going to share my screen. So if someone can let me know if it's working, that would be lovely. Is it working?
Manu, let's welcome Manu ji, who has done incredible work, and
Manu
is introducing you as Manu ji.
Oh my God! I see now how it feels.
It's good you're not calling him Manu uncle.
You've done some fascinating, very inspiring work. So really excited to hear from him.
Thank you so much. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Excellent. So
And it looks great.
Oh my God, I cleaned it specially for you guys. One sec. There we go. Perfect. So for the last 2 years, I've been leading the Chopra Foundation, named very humbly after myself. And we believe in tackling extreme poverty and fighting for the India we believe in, right? And the India we believe in is a land where every single person, irrespective of their caste, creed, gender, sexuality, religion, has access to every possible thing they could need, right? So this photo was taken in one of my favorite villages in Bihar. And what I want to do over the next 10 minutes is talk about the last 2 years, talk about everything that we have worked on, and describe just the stuff that we've been working on. So this is a very dramatic shot of me in 2017, graduating from Stanford, looking outside the Palm Drive and being like, what am I going to do with my life? And I was lucky enough to convince the Gates Foundation to write me a very expensive grant to travel the length and breadth of the country, stay in very expensive hotels and pretend to understand the people, but also spend lots of time in villages, get a sense of communities, really get a sense of what people want, what works well and what doesn't work well across the length and breadth of the nation. So I did that for a while, and I came up with the very simple idea that the very basic, biggest thing people need is jobs. And we need to focus on giving people work, and giving people work is the very best way to move them out of poverty, right? Because it gives them a sense of dignity that they did it themselves and it wasn't a handout, and it gives them a sense of aspiration in building their own life, right? That's how we all moved ourselves, / our families moved ourselves out of poverty. And that's the opportunity every single person in this country wants, just the opportunity to prove themselves, to get a job and get out of poverty, right? So that's what we have been focusing on for the last 2 years. We decided that we realized that there was a gap, a fundamental gap, right? So 75% of rural Indians live on less than $50 a day. So most of them are unemployed or underemployed. That's a shocking statistic that should make every single person feel uncomfortable. At the same time, I graduated in CS from Stanford. So I was hearing all the stuff about AI and machine learning and how digital work is the future. And we're going to build all these really cool algorithms which require lots of data. So we're going to rely on crowdsourcing platforms to create those data, right? And therein lied the basic gap that we wanted to fix. We wanted to bring these crowdsourcing platforms to rural Indians. So I needed a source of data. I needed data that was large enough that could move a lot of people out of poverty by giving them jobs, right? Small jobs they could do, right? So the first direction I looked at was government documents and digitizing them. So there are over 1.2 trillion documents right now in government of India, like offices all over the country. They're all in paper and they look something like this. And it became very clear that it was a big priority for the central government to digitize as many of them as possible. Most of these documents are in India's 19,629 unique languages and dialects. And for most of these languages, in fact, for all of them, OCR is simply not good enough. So we take a government document, we scan it, we segment it into individual things, and we distribute it to villagers in rural India who then digitize it. We analyze the digitization and we render the document back in the digital format. As simple as that, right? We have worked with Adivasi populations in rural Maharashtra, with Dalit and nomadic communities in rural Rajasthan, with tea workers in Bihar, with people all across the country, right? And most of our participants come from families that make less than $1 a day. And this is what the app looks like. For most of our participants, it's their very first time using a smartphone. In fact, one of our first participants, when she looked at the smartphone, she said, "Iske andar Surya Dev hai," or is the sun god inside this, because she had never seen a backlit source of display before, right? There was no electricity in the village, so she had no idea that that was possible, right? And to go from that to acing a smartphone within minutes is amazing, right? This is what the app looks like. It's very, very simple. People see a word handwritten in Hindi or their language, and they type it out using our keyboard. And the keyboard was designed with IIT Bombay to mirror Krishan Ji's chakra, a symbol that has unique religious appeal across the country and is easy to explain to people and what to do, right? So like I said, apartments have never used a smartphone or digitized words in their language before, and yet they do a really good job at it. They outperform state-of-the-art Infosys, like people at doing the same job. The women in center, Aruna is really happy because this happened right after demonetization, and everyone wanted to see the new pink note, the pink 2,000 rupees note, but they hadn't seen it. So they were all really happy because they got that. The guy on the right, Suraj Malji, this is his very first job. He's 34 years old, but he cannot read, he cannot listen, he cannot speak, but he was able to do this job just by digitizing stuff on his smartphone, right? So it's as simple as that. Recently, we have moved on from digitizing government documents to creating computational language models for Indic languages. As people in this room would know, designing Android apps for people who have never used smartphones before is really hard. So we rely on icons that pronounce the function. So you can see there are 3 icons at the bottom. The first one literally says speak to the phone. The second one says listen. The third one goes to next, right? So we have seen that these functions work really, really well time and again. And I didn't mention this, but I didn't mention this, but we give free smartphones to every single person we work with for the duration of the work, right? Because they don't have Android smartphones when we go there, right? These are just some of the examples, but using this and several other job opportunities, sometimes in construction sector, sometimes in IT, we have been able to move 10,000 rural Indians out of extreme poverty in the last 2 years, right? And these are split evenly across gender. We have 52% women and 48% men. And this, what you're seeing in this image is what we call a help circle, because people are so afraid of using smartphones. We get all of them to come together, and I teach it to the first person on the left of the circle, and they teach it to the next person, and so on and so forth. And it makes this really fun activity, and people within like 5 to 10 minutes are like, oh, we get this. This is easy, right? Apart from that, these are all the villages that we have worked in. In the last 2 years, we have worked in over 1,000 villages in India. We have bet on a few very simple things, right? The first thing we bet on is Indian poor are incredibly hard, and they have latent skills like speaking these languages that can be harnessed without expensive skill training, right? Skill training is fundamentally expensive, not scalable, right? Technology can scale really well if the right human intent and capacity exist on the ground, which it exists in every single village I've ever been to in this country, right? Designing for desire is very important, right? Everyone desires more money, and they can use that money to meet their needs. So that's a fundamental shift in the way we think about poor people. It is very tempting to create new schools, very tempting to give them access to water and food, and that's lovely, and we should do that. But fundamentally, the Indian poor are very, very aspirational, and they want access to money like we all do, and it's fair to give it to them, and of course, work with them so they make informed choices with the money, right? In 52 of the most underserved villages, we provide universal basic outcomes. In this case, we provide a fixed stipend of INR 6,000, which is deposited to a villager's account every single month. So every single month we give 6,000 rupees, and every village will also have a local leader who will get paid 4,000 extra. So that person will get 10,000 rupees. The local leader will make sure that the money is used well. And by well, we mean it should be used for art, it should be used for creation, it should be used for education, it should do all those good things to create a business, startups, etc. And that person is our direct contact in these villages, right? And then we also run a 2,400 acres sanctuary city in Kerala, which currently houses 10,000 people for free, and we run 10 schools in this city. So this is one of our larger, bold initiatives. As you know very well, life is very, very hard in India for people who don't look like me. And it became really important for us to create a sanctuary city where people who had been rejected from the Indian society in several other places can come and stay and feel welcome and really use their inherent human capital to create cool stuff. And we do this in Kerala. And at this point at the talk, every time I'm giving this talk, people mentally are doing a calculation of like how much money this shit costs. So they're like, Manu, this is all lovely and all, but where is the money to do all this coming from, right? So I do want to answer that specifically. And the money for all of this comes from something called Project Mahatma that we run in India. Project Mahatma is run by 25 Stanford professors and graduates. It's built on the concept of Ikigai. We do minimum 72 meetings a year with a Stanford mentor. We focus on designing your life. We focus on creating your path in life, helping you find your purpose, colleges you can apply to, and help you with applications. We give you all the technical skills you need to build your dream projects to get access to all Stanford curriculum. We help you learn how to manage your brand and sell your projects. We give you practical experiences, including help with, sorry, one second. including help with internships, leading large-scale interventions. We have 250 plus mentors in the country, including Stanford professors, top CEOs, nonprofit heads, Bollywood stars, and a whole lot of people. And the program started USD 2,000 a year. I'm plugging this in very not subtly here. And if you know people who want to apply, please ask them to apply at projectmahatma.com. And that is what basically the last 2 years have been like, right? So we have Chopra Foundation, which gives people work. We have moved 10,000 people out of poverty. It moves people out of poverty in over 1,000 villages. We fund bold initiatives like the 2,400 acre sanctuary city and provide universal basic outcomes to 8,000 people in 52 villages. And all of this is funded by Project Mahatma, which I just described. And that's it. That's my goal in life. I want to build tech to amplify the voice of our people and build it sustainably in a way that it really helps all of us. That's what I've been up to. One second. Oh, wow, there are a bunch of questions. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Perfect. 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second. I'll just stop the share. There we go. Okay, now I'm back to my normal screen. Perfect. So I'll just go through the questions. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. Is Gayatri ma'am says, is the government paying you for digitization or is this from the Gates Foundation? The government pays us for digitization. Though the initial grant was from the Gates Foundation. Manu, how do you see COVID and the lockdown impacting rural India? So I have never seen things on the ground as bad as they are right now, which is really scary. But I'm very optimistic about how everyone's coming together to help. At the foundation, we are giving 10,000 rupees a month to every single village we work in out of our pocket, like I think I mentioned in the group. And that is creating a big financial debt for us. But I think it's important because I've been getting horror stories on my WhatsApp every single morning. And I think this is going to take a while for us to get back to, but hopefully it brings us closer together as a country. And I'm being so happy to see all the good work that Roshan is doing and Divya is doing in tackling this. Simple question, what is the scope of conditional cash transfers in India? How do you view that versus universal income? I like universal income compared to conditional cash transfers because it puts inherent trust in the community. But I also think universal basic income isn't good enough, right? So if you give me 6,000 rupees a month and I just graduated from Stanford and you give a person sitting in a village in Maharashtra 6,000 rupees a month, I can do much more with it because I know people like you, right? So I can call up Sandeep uncle and be like, uncle, can I invest this in your startup? And that'll get me a much faster return, while the person in village in Maharashtra might not have access to any of those financial information, right? So we really have to stress on universal basic outcomes, which starts with UBI, but goes a step beyond in fixing inequities. On our website, chopra.foundation, we describe exactly why we prefer universal basic outcomes. I'm gonna hurry. Thank you, Shripati uncle. I think the question we get a lot is, will digital work ever end? There's an infinite amount of digital work in this country outside of document digitization, focusing on computational language models. We need over 1 million spoken hours of data in any language to be considered proficient in it. So that's 19,000 languages multiplied by 1 million spoken hours. That's a lot of work, right? And there was a paper that came out of Harvard a year or two ago, which basically said just using digital work, we can move 100 million Indians out of poverty. So I think this is a huge potential considering how many smartphones we have. And there was a new report that said smartphone ownership in rural India is 50% each, 50% men, 50% women, which is incredible because it just allows us to break another layer of generational inequity. You guys are so sweet. Mansi, how does this compare to SamaSource's model for generating digital work in rural areas? It's very similar. Leila Jana, who started SamaSource, is one of my biggest life models. She unfortunately recently passed away, but she's absolutely one of the best people ever. And I'm so inspired. And we would be doing none of this without her. She gave a talk at my class at Stanford, and that inspired all of this. Aditya uncle says, Manu uncle ji, can you tell me what's next for this project? I had a lovely call with Aditya uncle that gave me lots of ideas, and I'm going to copy all of his ideas and claim them as mine and then be like, that I'm a genius. I'm just going to copy everything Aditya Akal says. Who manages the sanctuary city? It is managed by a hotel chain called Malabar Escapes, and it's a German couple, and they manage it, and they do a fantastic job at it. How committed is the government to bring about change with tech? Very committed, I feel. I've had very positive interaction with the government. I met Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. I met the Métis secretary person. I met lots of IRS officers like Saurabh Kumar. They're all incredible. I thought I would have to explain them what AI is. They know, and they're really cool. And like, I remember before I met Mr. Prasad, he asked me for my white paper. I submitted it to him. And when I came into the meeting, he had already made notes in the paper. So I think they take their job very seriously. Thank you so much, guys. Paula Auntie says, so the migrations have gone back. Paula G says, if we could give them jobs and opportunities in the rural areas, will there be a reverse migration? I hope so. I want to live in a country where nobody has to leave their home to just get a job. If they want to come to the city, they should. It's their right, but they shouldn't have to leave them for that. There's a lovely project called the Artisan Connection, which is connecting villagers, people straight to the artisans, and we can talk about that. Really want to hurry up. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Do you see a model where the work with the villages can become self-sustainable and won't need funding from Mahatma? Yes, I hope so. I think right now we are really focused on scaling, and we are really focused on making sure that the work that they're doing is inherently sustainable, which it should be in the current market system, because they are doing productive work. So yes, I hope so. So will the $1 trillion economy with efficient transactions come about with many such projects? Well, Auntie, that's for Aditya Uncle to answer. I don't know. Regarding computational language models, are there commercial entities interested in the outputs for languages but not too many users? If not, curious where funding for. Yes, so Microsoft Research, which both Divya and I also work with, is very interesting in funding smaller regional languages like Gondi and Tulu, which is incredible. But even, a small regional language in India is 10 million people. So it's not that hard to convince people. There's a $50 million shared contract between Microsoft, Facebook, and Google in India on creating a local language corpus that will be open to all. The government of India is putting a lot of money into it. TDIL received 700 crores in the last budget, the database for Indic languages. So I think there's a lot of potential. And it's very important to say this, that any collected data should be available for every single person. If I'm someone in Orissa and I want to create a startup in Oriya, I cannot do that. There is no data available in Oriya, right? And that is simply unfair. People who own data in Oriya are American companies and they have no interest in sharing them, which I think is terrible in a world where data is the new oil. We have to make sure at least we have access to our data in public databases or databases that we can at least pay for. Thank you so much, guys. Can you